I'd like to welcome you again to the oblique, specious Church of the Air, where our assistant pastor sends word that he's not sure at all whether God cares and loves for you, but he knows for damn sure that we don't. He always was a hothead, though. So. But he also wanted me to remind you, the follow-up, everyone, since we don't have to retell it every year. And so the young Indian brave, in spite of all the many discouragements he received, and besides of the obvious physical impediments, he jumped in the freezing cold, in the lake, swimming over to the other side to reach his beloved. And of course drowned, but they named the lake, remember, in his honor, Lake Stupid. But for all I know, God may particularly love and care for him. It's very hard. It is difficult, it is tricky, it is hard to talk about man and life the way I have been doing without entering into any form of criticism of man. It is, in fact, the big M. Now, it's not impossible for me. It's impossible for ears to hear it, because I can spend every 5 minutes saying that, well, this is no criticism of religion or of the arts, or this is no criticism of man, or this is the way things are, and I'm just impartially pointing it out. And I can say that over and over, but ordinary ears, ordinary minds, of course, is what's operating the ears. If you are still dealing with your ordinary mind, which is a magnetic core, and therefore you are dealing with polarized magnetic thought, you have no choice. No matter what you say. A man can sit there and go to impartial announcer school, if there is such a thing, in Cincinnati, Ohio, if there is such a place. And they say, and here it is, the sports. Finally, part of our news show with no editorializing, the sports. Take it away, Biff Boy. And Biff Boy goes, hi. And he's got no accent, doesn't sound like he's from anywhere, got on clothes that look like they came from anywhere USA. And he says, I'm here to report the scores. No editorializing. I am not from any of these cities. I have no hometown loyalties, just the facts. Buffalo, 17. Detroit, 6. And you do understand, assuming that the program is aired either in Detroit or Buffalo, then half of the people watching the show are going to go, well, goddamn, and hold him responsible. The ears will hear criticism if they hear anything. And I say criticism in the fullest extent. That is, that the observation, the words spoken are weighted. So no matter what you say about man, no matter what you say about life, no matter what sort of caveats, warnings you give, people will hear it if they listen. If they hear anything, they will hear it as some form of critique. Giving in to public pressure, that is, giving in to the stupidity of most people. Night before last, I gave in and I presented an item, wrote it, read it, that said the only valid criticism of man would be that he is dumber than he has to be. That all of us can live with. Even I can live with it, pointing out that there is no valid form of criticism for man from any ordinary level. But if you must, to get your ears over it, so that people even would be trying to listen to this and try to take my cautions to heart of me saying this is no form of criticism, and they go, I'll try not to do it, and they can't. So this sort of gives you a way out. You can always fall back over in that position and say, well, even taking his presentation of it, buying his original story, buying into it, and him saying there is no valid form of criticism, he finally said there is one, so you can always jump over there. And it's true that for anybody, if you want a form of criticism, there is one. That's man is at every moment. Every man at every moment is dumber than he has to be. And I'm not going to stand here and debate dumb with you. Any of you who want to, if we got any strangers, we'll fight later after it's over. I'm not going to debate it if you're dumb enough to fight.
Yeah.
Knowing what I have in my pocket, I say dumb. Consider a worldwide definition of dumbness to get us going. Or perhaps another approach. Let's slip up on it. I've been trying to slip you up on it for some time now. All of the post-survival intellectual interest of man that aspire to be serious at all, each and every time are involved with the question of what's life about, what's the purpose of life, etc. And all of those who have participated actively in this verbal slice intellectual dance, that is, would-be philosophers, theologians, social commentators who have speculated, who have attempted to offer potential answers, always have their own introduction, have their own excusez-moi to begin with, and ultimately their own explanation, if you call it an explanation, which is according to how dumb you are, if you'll accept it. But the story being, let's call it a story for the moment, the story being that there is some sort of truth or reality going on that people cannot see. And again, if you found the heart of America, the heart of the world, the middle class of eternity at the mortal level, they would all agree to that. Be they speculators, theologians, philosophers or not. They would all agree, yeah, there's got to be more to life than we imagine. And if you up the ante just a wee little bit, just past the point where your uncle would even notice. And we were talking about people we'll assume such as yourselves, esteemed men and women, one and all, obvious just from a passing glance. And all of those who, have we got problems? No. And all of those who historically have been labeled by themselves or by others would be mystics, transcendental thinkers, people attempting to do something extraordinary with their lives, with their understanding, with their spirit, with their soul, etc. All the way from the Socrateses and the Buddhas and the Confuciuses and etc. All of them, according to history, one and all, have said this, that they'll all fall into some version of the creation story, which leads to what I'm saying, and they will say that in some way there is a reality. And at the playground level it comes out as God, of course. There was some original something. They're calling it God, supreme forces, Vedaic literature, the unknown, the undifferentiated energy. But they all present this scenario that there is a sequence that goes on from some greater, purer, quicker, more intelligent, more righteous, more enlightened force, and it spreads itself out. In some way it flows, it goes into some spiral, it goes into some expanding waves of creation, and as it goes out, as it moves down, as it moves up, it becomes slower. It becomes denser. Energy turns into matter. Godlike energy turns into poor old bricklayer type energy. Mortal energy. They therefore say, if we raise it up just to a level just a little above the ordinary, that is people that I'm sure many of you used to think you were. Types of people. Who believe, whose interest in life becomes something beyond bowling and bingo, that they actually attempt to do something. Whether it's through reading books, through joining some sort of course, meditation, drugs into meditation. But they attempt to do something, they attempt to adopt some sort of procedure that they say is going to, and then the many descriptions, increase their consciousness, awaken some new mental or spiritual facility within themselves. To what purpose? The purpose always being this, at least philosophically described. The purpose being to bring one's understanding back to the origins. To take one, the Sufis and some of those would say to put one back into union with God. Well, the Christian mystics and the Jewish mystics say that. And Buddhist literature would have it more to put one back at the stage where one's mind was before one's mind was one's mind. Well, I got it. I don't know. But at least Buddha and I can start a club. And even the philosophers, from Plato on through the neo platypuses, are still wanting in the West to describe the attempt at some sort of transcendental understanding, or the more down-home, in-town Socratic view, a man of wisdom, a man who understands what's going on, a man who has led a life that meant something, to himself at least. History doesn't ever record that part. It's always a life that meant something. So that you can think, oh, he lived for his fellow man. Yeah. If you'll eat horse shit sandwiches, yes. The description always being that if one, through meditation, through mental exercises, through rituals of some sort, does achieve some breakthrough, does achieve something extraordinary within himself, it's on the basis always, that in some way he has seen the original truth. That he is in some way, and they always fall into this. It's understandable again, based on magnetic thought, polarized thinking, that it's always a going back, a returning to a pure state, a more pristine day, halcyon times of a closeness to the Godhead, to the cosmic Big Bang. But philosophically, the point I wanted to hit is that you then see the truth. And the would-be mystical, occult, metaphysical, transcendental, philosophical literature on every quarter of this planet and every literate epoch describes it as that the experience of being, I finally saw what was right in front of me. All these years I saw the truth. I saw the reality. Not this ordinary reality, but the reality. Now consider, before we get into a kind of universal dumbness, well, a standard by which we will all fall, or by which we can all be measured. That sounds better. Well, I'm sure everyone would say, well, if it's my choice to be knocked down or measured, measure me. Because you don't know life measures people after it knocks them down. There's no better way to take a full survey of a snake than to throw it down and to hold it and then look. But at any rate, don't give any of you religious people the blues. You deserve worse than that. You deserve the deep purples. The description always being everywhere that I saw the truth. And this is accepted on many levels. It is not simply in weird, New Age, metaphysical, occult, cuckoo circles. Science even says that the greater, the more refined becomes our technology. Scientists say more and more we see a reality that heretofore, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we did not even suspect existed. And here it is before our frigging scientific eyes. There it is. So the idea that there is some sort of other reality that's right here next to us, whether you want to look at it at a subatomic, or a supraatomic, stretching the limits of our cosmological technology, pushing back the frontiers of our knowledge of the known universe, or from a more intellectual / spiritual view that there are experiences within a man's consciousness, not within a microscope or a telescope, wherein he simply turns around and sees, Jesus. Where'd all this come from? Except they describe, well, it didn't come from anywhere. It was right here. And I never knew it. And that begs, that claws and kicks you in the privates, not only begs, for an additional explanation. Nobody's going to buy a book. No one's going to pursue a philosophy if the philosopher, the man or woman who had the experience, if they simply describe, I went through these kind of procedures. I thought about life in a certain way, and I ate these foods, and I quit those foods, and then suddenly fate smiled on me, the God smiled on me, and I looked, and there it was, what I had always wanted, the experience, the peace, the stillness, all those descriptions that seem to be emotional. They still come to if they left it there, you might go, woo, boy, that's great. But no one would pursue it as some sort of systematized religion or philosophy, because you can get that kind of woo feeling off drugs, booze. It has to have an explanation of sorts, and it only has to be a few words. And the words are always what I'm telling you, is I go, oh, it was finally it. I got it. I knew that it was possible for a man to have some sort of increased experience, something outside of drugs, outside the norm. And I had it. And so you hear about it, you read about it, and you go, yes, yes, yes. And if it says the end, you take the pamphlet of the book and go, what do you mean the end? At first you might think, well, I'm glad somebody else had it. That's it. So I know it's possible. I can hear the ring of the truth. But that won't do. There has to be some, because the whole thing is, if you don't see it yet, is here. You've got to understand that without this, there is no such experience. Anyone can understand that, can't they? Well, I don't know. We hadn't covered the universal dumb standard yet. You're right. Without an intellect, you could have no blank experience, because without an intellect, you can't have any experience that can be described anyway. So, the person describes that they had an experience, but then they must say something, and they always do, and it is always that, the experience, the stillness of the mind, da 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 da, da da da, You go, yes. Then maybe a final paragraph, but at least a follow-up sentence. They'll say, directly to this, they'll say, I turned and I looked, and I realized that the truth, the secret of life, the secret of reality, the reality behind reality, whatever term, I suddenly realized it was right there. That, even by me turning it into a melange of different descriptions, that sets off Looney Tunes and merry melodies in many people's hearts and mind. I'm not being. It makes that is it. You go, because that just sounds right. It's got to be it. And then after that, you can start a religion. You can do anything with it, because then it falls into, we are all the same. We're all our brother's keepers, especially those of you that would like for your brother to help keep you up. Don't forget, if that doesn't work, you've always got the oblique specious church of there here to turn to, where you don't have to worry. We don't give a goddamn for you, period. So, at least you don't have to sit around worrying about whether we're going to come help you or deliver a cake or, Well, it's nice to know where you stand, finally, in some area in life. You go seeking other charity, you may go, and they say, well, yes, we have certain charitable programs. They say, but are you Catholic? And you go, well, no. And they go, we're so sorry. Maybe you can talk them into it, maybe you can't. Us, you can't talk into anything. At any rate, after you once describe that there's reality there, then they normally will follow up, or the next generation. The Moses Jr. to the original Moses, or Buddha's brother-in-law, whoever comes along and tries to make a living off of it, they'll say, that does mean that we're all, not only are we all part of the same Godhead, but we're all the same. You're me and I'm you, especially if you got more money than me. We're all the same. Spiritually, of course, but other ways too. We are at the heart of all transcendental philosophy. Transcendental with no cuckoo, occult ideas, or mystical reality. That is, the reality that everyone says and everyone will accept. That there is another reality behind this reality. At least one more. Scientifically, if you must have it that way, which is fine, or more allegorically, although actually existing, but more of a non-physical nature. That there's just another reality here. That as soon as men started painting on the walls, after they got through painting the first nude stick drawing of a woman on the male cave bathroom, the next thing they did when they started to write was something about, this ain't the only reality. Yeah. And of course the next guy that came in to take a whiz, the next caveman wrote, you can say that again. And then the third one came in, said it again. That was, it was easier to make men who had to piss bad laugh back then. It was easier to do. Of course, come to think about that, I was still working a lot of the Big Ten schools, in case you hadn't. And the bars in the same environs. We are to the place of what all this sort of thing is about, but it's still where the experience has been described, the follow-up. That there is a reality behind reality that we do not see, and that once you do see it, it explains everything. Since I'm not here to convert anybody, that strikes you as being true, which it does, as I said, most people, even if they never think about it again, or they never think about it unless it's pointed out in a non-religious, non-crackpot, non-occult, non-New Age way that just there is. And people go, it just feels right, it sounds right. So here we are. We have people now, and many of you, and many people that might see this second-handedly through some kind of strange electronic means, people who will sign up for courses, people who will change their diet, people who will try to affect their personal habits, people who will suffer, people who will apparently take on additional suffering, take on additional forms of guilt, people who will travel, people who will change jobs, people who will move from one city to another, people who will take up with some would-be sage, some guru, until he cleans them out and they'll go to another one. And these people are not simply idiots. Well, because many of you would do the same thing if you had a very reasonable expectation that doing something, such as just packing up now and giving up everything and leaving, and going to Germany, to France, to China somewhere, that would do it. That you would get there and there was somebody there that would show you a method, or give you a ritual, some procedure, some practice, that within a reasonable time, they've had success before, that you would have this experience. Not only the experience, but the final description, or the follow-up description, the experience itself, the satori, the being blown away, the enlightenment. And they all describe this. They all say the experience is passing. That nobody stays in the state. Buddha's brother-in-law, after he was gone, claimed that Buddha did, which helped the income for a long time. And of course, Jesus, some of those cats, they died. And they're gone, so you can't, you don't know how long they stayed in the condition. Do you want to take it allegorically or literally, consider somebody being tortured and nailed up on a cross, and you could consider if he had had any ability to bring about this kind of experience, he surely would have done it then. So he may have had it right at the final moment. If you want to look at it literally, allegorically, it's a whole other story, by the way. But literally, but then, so you could say, well, he had it and he never lost it. Right. But if you want to do that, it would be sit, go through a procedure, go through some practice, and reach the moment. And then when you do realize, because everybody that does it, within a few hours, they feel it slipping away. And God, that's a horrible feeling. They think, this is it. For the first time in my life, in a strange way, I am alive. I can actually see. Up until now, life was... But after a few hours, they feel it. They can tell. and I'm not going any further because enough of you, and you feel it going, and it, I hate to put a word, but it's a form of desperation. I was simply going to point out one way to overcome that, if you wanted to play one of the past scenarios literally, was when you realize, let's say another 6 or 8 hours, and you realize it's about gone. I mean, now I am more out of it than I'm in it. But other than that, well, that was a long way just for that, wasn't it? Other than that, what I was saying is it happens and it is passing. They will all admit that. All the literature is full of it. You normally skim over it if you haven't ever had the experience. But they leave this. They say, well, even after the experience was over, after some days, after what it was, when it seemed like I lost it. I was back to my ordinary mind. I was back to my ordinary condition. I was back to my ordinary state. But there was one thing, and it was, and many of my understandings, although in this, many of the feelings I had, much of the closeness, much of the sympathy, much of the indescribable brotherhood I felt for all of life, for my fellow man, for animals, for trees, for the universe, although the feeling itself, I can't bring it back right now. It is indisputable, it is indelible in my mind, or they may say my heart, but they're saying in my mind, the fact that I realized that there was another reality right there because I did not pass out. I was not over in some cave. I did not fall off into some kind of LSD flashback. I got up, I went to work, or I drove around, I went to see some of my friends. It went on for 12 hours. I drove around town, I did some banking. The point is, it was not such an extraordinary pseudo-mystical or psychedelic stage that it was my imagination mixed in with reality, that is ordinary reality. It was that reality, ordinary reality was still there. That's why I threw in this thing about banking, etc. Is that ordinary reality was still present and I was still an operative part therein. I still functioned as I always did. And at the same time, walking around the stores, seeing people I dealt with, seeing people going through their ordinary daily affairs in the bank, in a store, a cop on the corner, all of it, I simply looked. And I still saw ordinary reality. It wasn't like I was in some kind of psychedelic, psychotic state. I saw ordinary reality. I saw me there fulfilling the same things of going in, saying good morning to the cashier I normally use. She said good morning. And I handed her my deposit, and we chit-chatted, as we always do. And I saw that. So that was not changed. That was still there. And yet there was coevally going on simultaneously another reality right there that she didn't see, no one saw, and of course I'm aware that I never see. And there it was. That I cannot forget, even though the state, the condition is gone. Now let's play what if. Figuratively speaking, because you know when I play what if, I don't really mean what if. It's just adding, well, to make it easier, it's like, adding a little castor oil to your ice cream, so, make it go down better. What if and this is not in any way belying, subtracting, distracting from the description I just presented about someone in this condition, because anyone who's been in it, no, I don't have anything else to say between anyone who's been in it. Nothing further need be said between them and myself. For anyone else, I just want to point out that I am not in any way making any negative comment on the condition, on the experience, because that's what all this is about. Might as well admit that. I'm not up here trying to sell a course or encyclopedias or to put plastic shingles on your house, although there is some good money in that, I guess. Of course, to tell you the truth, the reason I am not actually in it is I am, my brother-in-law and I was working on vinyl siding for the mind anyway, so just a matter of time before either success or I'm going to throw him out. What if all this grand idea, which, one more time, I am not in the least questioning. I am not subtracting one dot of an I from my description of the experience and its value, because that's what all of this kind of thing's about. That's what all of, in a sense, any intelligent man or woman's life is about. Whether they actually get involved, if they're attempting to be more civilized, they're attempting to be more humane, if they're attempting to improve their mind, if they're attempting to be a better parent, if they're attempting to be a better neighbor, they're attempting to have this kind of transcendental experience. They simply are. So I'm not questioning that, and at times people, through doing acts of charity, through times of just ordinary things in life, as times of grief, a horrible tragedy to which they're a witness, they can have this kind of sensation, close to the same experience that, wait a minute, I stand here, I live my life every day, and there they stand next to the road perhaps. They pull up, and there has been a horrible car wreck, and they get out, and there's a baby with his head cut off through a windshield, just something. I'm not trying to give you the yucks. But they can almost, just ordinary people, can have what amounts to a kind of unexpected, unsolicited, very temporary, almost a transcendental experience, in the sense that it strikes them. That here I am, I live my life, I drive this highway back and forth every day. Normally I'm coming back here it is, 5:15, I'm normally cursing traffic, worried about, am I going to get a date tonight, or worried about what my wife's going to have for supper. And my mind's always somewhere else. I'm cursing the radio, I'm listening to talk radio, I'm cursing the Republicans calling in, or the Democrats. And there you stand looking at this horrible, that somebody, could have even been somebody that you pass on the highway, you recognize their car, and you realize that like that, their life is gone, there's their children, dead, and it just gives you this feeling. With ordinary people, again, it doesn't amount to much, and that's that kind of example. It normally, when I say it's very temporary, you must know that because you've seen such as that, and it's almost, as psychologists would say, you have to block it out of your mind anyway. I can't go around thinking about this, which you can't. But momentarily, even quite ordinary people will have the true, the valid knowledge. They cannot intellectually back it up. And they can't argue the point, they don't even want to dwell on it, but they do have this kind of transcendental, mystical awareness that the reality that we live in, that's not all of reality. It simply is not. But, it always seems to be negative to them, like, I could be there. I could have been dead. These people are driving along, a happy family, 2 seconds ago, and then bam! And they're gone. They're alive. Maybe one of them survived. The poor mother, but alive. What's it going to be like when she regains consciousness? It always seems to be negative. So we've got people all the way from the ordinary, just ordinary middle class sane, to people actually attempting, through whatever means, whatever practice, under whatever name, to try and fulfill, to try and have the experience of seeing life beyond what seems to be normally available. And so then we are at the description of those who have had it, and then those who have not had it, but who will just readily agree of the descriptions that there is another reality, and it's right here, and it's our job, one way or the other, to try and perceive it, to try and be a witness to it. And people go, yes. If you don't put any great religious trappings to it, and you don't say it's either this kind of religion or that kind, just humane people, humanists, atheists will go, that's true. We should. There's another level to life going on here, you're right, and it should be our responsibility as decent, humane, charitable, educated, right-thinking men and women to try and see life beyond just the everyday, mundane, let's make a buck, bottom line, every man for himself reality. So we would have everyone agree, every sane person on this planet would agree that there is another kind of reality somewhere. And when they hear the descriptions of those that say there's another shocking reality, well, there's another reality, and it's right here. It's not in some passed out dream that you had to take drugs, you had to fast forever, you had to join some particular church and whirl around or stay on your head or handle snakes, handle attorneys by the, Sure. And they still won't invite me to the bar gatherings anymore. The description that there is another reality. People who've never had, well, here's the description, what I want to get at, to set it up, good and solid. Even they will agree if you don't put any particular spin on it and make it sound like it would be limited to someone of a particular cultural, racial, or religious background. You just say, people have had this experience and they say that other reality is right here. It's not far away and is not limited to, it is not tied to some particular religion's practice. People have had it that didn't even claim to be religious. And they've described it, and the descriptions all say there's no reality here, and people go, yeah, I can believe that. They may not want to discuss it anymore, they may not have any interest in it, but they will say, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. Now, what if? What if, instead of the description being valid, that there is another reality here and it's our job, it's our responsibility, or it's the aim of those actively involved with some would-be mystical practice, to pursue, to uncover, to pierce this outer veil of dull, materialistic, slower vibrating into the universe, or part of the universe, and to perceive, to become a direct eyewitness to this other secret reality. Mm-hmm. What if, never mind that, what if that's not it? What if that is not the best description? What if I can give you the much better one? And unless you're at the low end of the dumb standard that I'm going to present, you can't deny it. What if the better description, what if the reality of it is this? That this, quote, secret reality, this other reality, is not all that secret, it's not all that hidden, but things are arranged. Life is arranged things so that when men look at all at their lives, which everyone does, even just momentarily, here and there, when they look at their lives, they cannot directly, they cannot in a point-blank fashion see what human life is. We're getting closer. Now let me refine it. What if that's not it? What if life is arranged so that men do see it, but life is arranged it to where at any given moment, whether it be 5,000, 10,000 years ago or right now, at any given moment it is arranged so that when men see it, they do not see what they see as being a form of the permanency of reality. I can refine it a little more, I think, simplify it. What if the secret reality that all the great mystics, all the literature is filled with, that I have tried to sort of condense, what if this reality the ordinary sane mind sees, that is not hidden, ordinary people, non-mystics, non-particularly extraordinary people see it, but life is arranged in such a way as when they see it, it does not fit in to, wherever it was, it does not fit into the collective, to life's need for men in general, for their minds to see reality as being that. In other words, they see what's going on, and that does not fit the imposed paradigm of what reality is. It does not fit the way things should be to their mind. Now, normally they have something to refer to. Like, well, yes, this may be the way life is, but Muhammad said, or yes, well, wait a minute, this may be the way life is, but the great Buddhist tradition tells us, or wait a minute, this may be the way life is, but a good Italian Jew would not. No. What if the secret reality is not secret? It is not hidden at all, but is indeed point blank at all times. And that is what men cannot see other than just in flashings. And as soon as they see it, it will fall into discussion, will fall into weighted, polarized discussion between this side and that side. It doesn't matter what side, but the point blankness of it, the secret reality of it, as soon as men see it, it is no longer point blank reality. It is then secret. I was going to give the dumb standard, the dumb question. I should have waited until the last moment of the tape, but I've been through this before. The only valid criticism of man is that he is dumber at any moment than he has to be. Proof of that, and plus what I just pointed out, that playing what if, the secret reality, the secret, extraordinary, mystical, metaphysical, transcendental experiences men have that make them all say that they saw another reality right in front of them. They saw the old reality, but they saw that there was another reality right there that they never saw. Proving that that may be incorrect, and that my simple description might be the better one, and proving that man is stupider, dumber at any moment he has to be, is this. I will have the decency not to ask for a show of hands, not to make this an overtly responding test. You can do it in the privacy of your own head. Of course, if you have any decency and you do not answer it correctly, I would assume that your head will explode, or you'll run from the room trying to pull your brains out and throw them to the floor. If life does not force men at every given moment to be dumber than they are, now this is tied to, this is not separate from what I've just gone through for the last 45 minutes, that this reality, this other reality that people say must be striven for, that is, although it's right in front of us, it may take a lifetime plus a great deal of cosmic serendipity to see it. But when you see it, you realize, my God, you know, it answers everything, blah, blah, there it is, and was there all the time. And it took me 50 years. It took me a lifetime. And then I saw it, and it was gone. Jeez. Those are not separate. If man is not dumber than he has to be because of life, that life has it arranged to where this secret reality that has been so widely, so reasonably, so acceptably described as being present at all times, whether you ever experience it or not, you would go, yeah, God, that's got to be true. It sounds right. It feels right. What if man is dumber than he has to be, and it's tied to this, that the secret reality is not secret, it's right there, but life is not arranged for you to see it and to fix on it, to be able to hold it for more than a second. The proof, the standard, the test. The rhetorical question. You don't have to take the test. I don't want to see anybody's head exploding here. We just painted the room. If life wanted man to be intelligent, I'm trying to figure the worst way to put it. Well, theatrically, I was trying to think the most sarcastic way to, since all of you enjoy that. Bunch of literate smartasses. Well, in your case, semi-literate, sir. Very smart ass, but semi-literate. How could any human claiming to be capable of intelligence believe for a second that there is any question whatsoever, could even believe that someone asked the question, but still believe there's any question as to which controls the more, man, his environment, or his heredity? Well, all you got to do is do that and look thoughtful, and the test is over, folks. Of course, the test has been over before they had that description that was back to the idea of free will. All you've got to do is any of the four corners of this planet, at any of the chronological eras, you look, and there's been the question. In simpler times and cruder areas, it is still in a religious context of, the battle between good and evil. If there is a supreme good, how can it let evil so often appear to get the upper hand? If men have free will, if God's made him with free will, then how come man turns around and does things that God said, you shouldn't have done that? What the hell's going on? It's all the same question. Don't let them delude you. That is, don't let these the little gray cells from Belgium, try and delude you. It's all the same question. Which affects man the more? His innate, inherited tendencies, talents. It's either that or it's the environment of other people, the culture, etc. How can any human, from the lowliest culturally, socially, to the most brilliant, recognized thinker on this planet, how can they claim, how can they look me or you in the eye, much less themselves, and claim to be, just in passing, just for a second, that they're intelligent? Of course, the beauty of that question, if we had ordinary people here, they by now would probably be looking for a rope or a necktie to either put me in a suit and tie or hang me, whichever would be the worst. They would be really upset because contrary, they'd say, God, I couldn't imagine. How could anybody be more wrong than you are? Because if there's any sure sign of intelligence, it is people who say, well, the facts are not totally in yet as to which has the more. It seems to be today, circa, let's say, late 1993, Western world, it seems to be the statistics, the clinical evidence, it seems to be weighing, it comes and goes. We'll admit that, but it seems to be now still that it's a combination of one's environment and heredity. Boy, are they getting somewhere or not? But they would say, you understand just the beauty of the way life's arranged. And we're still talking about the same thing. I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just trying to get you to see. Don't worry about having a mystical experience in a cave yet. Here's the kind of thing that right here in front of you, and people cannot see it. And yet they go, I don't have to see it. I have a PhD. How much do you make? They would say that contrary to what I would sound to be inferring. What do you mean sound to be inferring? Okay, back off. No sense making a Nobel Prize winner get the jitters. Sweat in his suit and run it. Rust the metal on his metal. They would say, rather than me showing that be some form of stupidity, they would say contraire. You would find someone of less intelligence who might say, well, yeah, people are nothing but just how they're born. I got an uncle. He had a kid. As soon as I looked at him, when he was a kid, like 2 days old, I looked at him, I go, look at that face. He's going to be a crook. Sure enough, he's in jail right now. People say that seriously, by the way. The laughter I hear, I hope it's not someone laughing like that's not possible. But at any rate, our intelligent, sophisticated, ordinary outsider would say, now that's a display of ignorance. That's a display of a man being dumb, because a true sign of intelligence, contrary to what I just got through saying they would accuse me, let's say contrary to that, would be a person who would say, wait a minute, there is no solid final answer as to which drives man the more. Well, sir, we can bypass driving the more. Just what's the answer? Which drives man, heredity or environment? And they would say, well, contrary to you saying that anyone who can answer that is a sign of dumbness, no. That would be a sign of intelligence. Because only a dumb man would say, well, it's one or the other. Or only a dumb man would say, it's heredity. Or as much as it may appeal to the more intellectual people, they would still say it would be a sign of dumbness if a man says, well, it is all the environment, that's all. Back to me playing the other part, this person would say, it is a sign of intelligence. That someone would not come down 100% on one side or the other, because we do not yet know. We're still studying it. Some of the world's great minds are working on that. What kind of minds? That's the point. They are dumber than they have to be. Because the answer, everyone has known as soon as man spoke. As soon as the first man's 2 little cells got close to Belgium, grew a little mustache, and began to think. Well, all right, 2 people. It always takes 2. One says, let's talk philosophy. No one goes, well, okay, there ain't no women around yet. He says, do we have free will? Are we guided now by how we were born or not? We develop our culture. Is it our environment, is it you making me act the way I do, or is it more of my hereditary? You figure, what, 60-40, 30-70? We've had that long. If you do not believe that everyone is dumber than they have to be, then you did not understand that test. You are still intelligent. You may even be a scholar. Remember the definition. That's a man who gave up. You are dumb. That doesn't even cover. That's why I was looking for a false, theatrical, sarcastic. It's just, you've got no semblance. You're not utilizing the human mind. And yet, here it is. And yet, after going through all that, people do know the answer. Ordinary people. Those who would accuse me of, well, you're getting too simplistic and you're just going haywire. They know the answer. Which is to say what? They know mystical experience. They know what transcendental secret reality is. It's right here. Where? Why, you just saw it. No, it's not, no. No, I heard for a second what you're saying. I'm playing this other guy's part. You were trying to use examples. And it just so happened you picked out a kind of weighted example showing how this one kid grew up in a certain environment and acted a certain way, and yet turned out this way, whereas twin brother in the same, yeah, for a second I said, yeah, all right, yeah, but that example, that's just anecdotal. That's not going to prove anything. He's playing an apologist for his cult leader. For those of you that didn't catch that one the other night, that anytime you've got a group of people form around a magnetic core, you've got a cult. And then, one of the continuing jobs of all the cult members is to then start playing apologist for the leader. All of you know what apologist, all you good readers of Catholic mystical literature. An apologist is one who helps explain. That's why apologist sounds better than somebody has to make excuses, but it now has an academic tone to it. An apologist is a educated, literate, probably a guy with a suit and tie, or at least a all-wool monk shroud instead of a permanent press. He becomes an apologist for the cult leader. Everyone knows that. That's one of those sure signs of a cult. If the Food and Drug Administration, who is it that attacks people? I always get them confused. It's that department, they're in charge of watching out for Tommy guns and false labeling on food coloring. Is that it? That ain't right. Well, I just throw it in and let the government take it for free. That's one of the sure signs of a cult. Should we attack these people? Are they a cult or just crackpots without any particular religious leanings or no firearms or illegal food coloring? And if they don't know, one way to tell is to get outside their little compound or their house and holler, have the leader's name, Julio Hirschfield. They holler, Julio, is a pig fucker or something. That's not good enough. Father Hirschfield is misled in his philosophical paradigms of the nature of the universe. That'll do it. And suddenly they'll all come running out to defend him and waving the Hirschfield, the official pamphlets, the outline for the group. They will all be apologists and go, wait a minute. And they won't come to your house and won't ride bicycles up on your lawn. They want to hold you. Say, no, listen to us. We're not nuts. We're not crackpots. Let us tell you, you don't know how great Father Hirschfield is. Then you know it's a cult, that they're all apologists, explainers for him. The item that nobody seemed to like particularly tonight, I pointed out also, the follow-up, the last sentence of that item was, same with a man's personality. That's what your mind constantly does. What you think of as being the core of your mental personality, what you think of as being I, being you, is nothing but a crackpot and a proof being, and you're a cult because you constantly have to apologize for him. Do you think I got off the subject? Not hardly. How can you call yourself intelligent? How can a person call himself intelligent? How can somebody say that they're sane? How can somebody say that they are rational? And still, if you say, what do you think about this question about which affects man the more? The environment or heredity? If they do not immediately know the answer, and I say immediately as I said, everybody actually knows the answer. If a person cannot know the answer longer, as long as it takes to get a word out of his mouth, which hardly anybody on this planet can, that's how you have to go. It's what the Zen and everyone says, well, our minds are so far from the initial reality that it's now like all these busy little ripples and what caps on this great, unceasingly moving ocean, and we're trying to get back to the original Big Bang cloud where the first rain came from, still the lake. At that given moment, everyone knows the truth. Everyone knows the reality, but they cannot see it. Life is not arranged to where they can see it long enough to even say it, to even know that they see it. You say, tell me the truth. Which do you think is the most important? Which do you think controls man more? The environment or his heredity? You say, it's too late. Because I'm telling you this great secret reality of all forms. I put it to you as a question, what if it's not secret? What if everyone can see it, but they cannot see it as being as being the proper form of reality? And therefore they don't analyze it, they don't discuss it, but in a sense life makes them dismiss it on the basis that even if you could grab their mind in the middle of a wave, which I forgot the milli, that they measure brain waves, it's a lot more than a high C. Anyway, it's real fast. If you could grab it right there before they got away, like you said, which counts more in driving a man's life? The hereditary environment, and let's say I'm correct, and everyone knows the answer. I mean, it's no secret. Everybody knows the answer. But it goes so fast they can't even nail it down and say it. But what if I could grab it? And I go, you won't do it this time. You saw it, and I got it right here. Admit it. They can't admit it. The most they could do you follow me? That this could physically happen. More or less. I could grab it like you always do this. Every time you're trying to see point-blank reality, you'll look away. Life makes you do it, but this time, by God, I stopped it. I stopped you in mid-thought. I stopped you before you could turn around. Right here, holding right here, and this brainwave of yours I've got here, that is the answer that you've always known about which counts more, in a man's life, the environment or his background, his physical heredity. Here it is, you know the answer. Now you follow this, and let's say that while me doing this, I go, God, you're right. I do know. I see there's the answer. They still could not take that. Life's not arranged because they go, what this does, let me go. I go, all right. Well, they'd say, all right, you know what that does? You know what that does? You're making me see that? You're right. You know what that does? All that does is encourage me to work harder for man and humanity. Because this is an absolutely untenable position. That is civilization. That even if men did see that, wait, that's the way things are. If I could stop everything and everybody realized, well, damn, I knew it. I knew it. If I could do that with everybody, they would still go, now let them go, kind of. You follow? They go, well, you were right all along. You were right, we always knew it. And if I said, well, why does that change? Contrary to what you individually would expect would happen to you, which would be a different story, they would go, well, it's done this. Not discourage them. It didn't stop everything. It didn't make them go, wait a minute, we've wasted 10,000 years of civilization. We've been beating on not dead horses, we've been beating on illusionary horses. That's not what happened. They go, well, this shows me one thing. This shows me that we've got even more work to do than I ever imagined. Which is saying what? Which is saying, well, I see reality, but this can't be. We cannot hold this course. We cannot hold this position. This is not humane. This is not the humanity I know. This is not civilization. And they're right. It's a secret civilization. They said this is unacceptable reality. Right. It's a secret reality. It is point blank, but it's not all that secret. In complaints, be sure and write the assistant pastor, not me. Right? No.